Right, so we wanted to do a video to show you what we think the 5 best modifications are you can do to your transporter, whether it's a T5, T6, T6.1. We get asked all the time where people should start if they've bought themselves a panel van, so we thought it'd be a good opportunity to run you through the things that we do first when we buy a van and what we think the 5 most useful, most successful, best things you can do to your van when you buy one to make it drive so much more car-like and make it feel less like a commercial vehicle and actually feel like a space you want to be in to do some miles in. So number 1 is suspension, number 2 is headlights, number 3, wheels, number 4, carpet line and insulation, and finally number 5 is audio. So firstly we're going to talk about suspension. Now suspension is the very first thing I do when I buy a van. Now generally, if you know me or you followed me, all of my vehicles end up on air, but that doesn't necessarily happen straight away. Now I find a van on stock suspension awful to drive. I've had brand new T6 ones arrive, drive them a mile down the road, bring them back, and it's like I get seasick. I hate the way they feel. We've got to remember that commercial vehicles aren't built for comfort, they're built to carry infrequent loads. So whether that's plasterboards, Amazon parcels, whatever, they're designed to take a load which is then taken out. They're not designed to take a permanent load, and they're not designed for comfort in the same way that Volkswagen would design a Passat or a car vehicle. So what we do is we supply suspension, or what I would do first of all is change the ride of that vehicle. Now there's a common misconception that when you lower a vehicle you reduce the ride quality. That's absolutely not true. If you lower a vehicle correctly with the right suspension, you will massively improve your ride quality. The difference between Volkswagen suspension that's built for commercial vehicles and something like a Bilstein product or a Solo product is they're built with so many more shims and valves and better gas inside them, so your inbound and rebound make them so much more comfortable. The other thing to bear in mind when you're lowering your vehicle is you reduce your centre of gravity. Now these are big slab-sided objects, aren't they? So as you go around corners, they wave and they move around, so you want to reduce that sway, and again by lowering the vehicle, done well, will hugely improve that. Cheap coilovers are just that, they're not going to give you that ride. You're much better off starting off with good quality springs, and if you have the budget, then look at doing good quality coilovers. So as I said earlier, these vehicles are on air suspension. Now that's not for everybody for many reasons. Firstly, cost. Secondly, just usability really. Some people want to just jump in a van and go. So the 2 suspension I'm going to talk about today is what I would consider the entry option, or the best of the quality entry options, and that would be the Solo Pro IBAC adjustable springs. So many of you probably know that IBAC make the springs for the Sport line. Now we work really closely with IBAC UK, and that's partly because they're about 5 miles that way and we know those guys really well. We help them develop, they help us develop. So we went to IBAC and said, let's look at making the best lowering spring we can for a transporter. So we took the information, the data that VW had done with IBAC from the Sport line spring, which is a 30mm lowering spring, and we tried various different levels of drop to work out at what point was the sweet spot that you could get the most lowering out the vehicle without sacrificing your ride quality and the ride becoming crashy. And that's where the 45mm lowering kit came from. So we do an IBAC Solo Pro 45mm lowering kit. The downside to just that on its own is if you've got a heavy camper and you've got a lot of weight in the back, then it's going to sit lower at the back, and that massively affects the ride and handling. You want the vehicle to sit balanced, so you're not having a vehicle that's effectively doing a wheelie and pulling those drive wheels off the ground. So from there we developed the Solo IBAC Pro adjustable spring. So same concept, in fact it's the same front spring, but the rear has an adjuster in it. The spring diameter and the depth is different, and there's an adjuster in there that allows you to use the adjuster to wind the level of the vehicle at the back up to match the front, regardless of what weight you've got in there. As I said, that's going to bring down your centre of gravity, it's going to aesthetically make the vehicle look nicer and improve your ride and handling over stock suspension. So what's the best option apart from air if money isn't an object or you want the ultimate ride quality? So generally we're used to driving cars, and we're used to driving cars with comfort. Now you can get that same level of comfort, trust me, from a van if you put the right suspension on it. Now a lot of the vehicles that we see and that people that watch this video use them as campers. So they're heavy campers, or they're day vans, or they're combis that take weight in the back, or you've got seats and you load pods in the back, or you load bikes in the back. And that's carrying quite a lot of weight in these vehicles. So we developed a kit with KW called the Solo NXT Plus. Now the beauty of this kit is it lowers your van. Again, we'll talk about the centre of gravity, brings the vehicle down. You're also replacing the damper. The damper's shortened along with the shorter springs, which are going to make the ride and handling better. You're not going to make that ride crashy. But with the Solo NXT Plus kit, we also have the ability to adjust the dampening rate on the rear. So we've got previous videos on this kit. We'll put a link in that at the bottom of the video here just to go through it so you can see that kit in a bit more detail. But with that adjustable kit, not only do you use the coilover adjustment to adjust the height, front and rear, you can also adjust the dampener on the rear. So what your opinion of comfortable is, my opinion is, could be two completely different things. But you can fit that suspension and go, actually I want that rear a little bit firmer because I've got loads of weight in the back, it's a heavy camper, or I want it a little bit more softer because there's not a lot in the back there. The damper can very simply be adjusted to make the ride suit how you want the vehicle to perform with its dampening rate and the comfort level. Huge improvement over what we used to see in the Transporter came out 20 years ago, and the suspension that came out then and how technology's evolved now has brought us to the very latest in coilover kit, and that would be the Solo NXT Plus. That's what we have on the vehicle we use on our Caravelle, as we called it, our Caravelle converted T6.1, the one that we put all the staff in when we're taking them off to shows. If we've ever got to do long distance, that's the vehicle we do it in. I've driven that vehicle to the Alps and back before Christmas with all the kids in it, and it drives absolutely great. Loaded up with people, with food, with fridges, with snowboards on the roof. That's the suspension I would go for if I wanted to put them in a vehicle for daily use and to do long journeys. So our next recommendation here at Transporter HQ would be headlights. Now, many of you will know, if you have a standard T5, T6, T6.1, the standard halogen headlights in them are, well, some even say dangerous. They're just not bright enough. So over the years we actually started with the T6, then we went backwards to the T5.1 and the T5, and then obviously when the T6.1 came along, we developed headlights for that. So starting here, this is a T6.1, this is the Navis demo van, so this came with your standard halogen lights. So this has our full LED light package in it. So not only is it there to look pretty with all these sexy LEDs and fancy indicators and light up sequences and stuff and all those bits they do, the main benefit of these is how bright they are. So this light is brighter than a genuine factory LED T6.1 headlight. Still passes all the regulations and laws, still has the correct beam pattern, all those things. Isn't going to blind oncoming traffic, but is going to make it visually so much safer for you to drive the vehicle, along with making the headlights look better and making your vehicle look better. And again, just making it look less like a commercial vehicle and actually making it look like a car in its look and its styling. So this design here is very much based on like the RS6 style, with the way that the LEDs drop into the headlight when you turn them on. That's the latest end of the scale. So moving over to the Dream build, this is the T5 light, so standard T5 with a light bar, DRL in it, but again, brighter bulbs. Most standard headlights have a H4 bulb that shares the job of doing the dip and the main beam. The downside to that is there's one bulb doing two jobs, is it can't have the same output as if you have one beam doing the dip beam and one beam doing the main beam, or one bulb doing the dip beam, one bulb doing the main beam. So you get much better output by being able to change it to this style headlights. These are all plug and play. None of these need any coding. You should just be able to plug them in, fit them, and away you go, and improve the output of your lights, whether it's T5, T5.1, T6.1 or T6. So going over to Steve's van here, so we've seen bits of this float around. So this is a new light we're developing, so we're constantly developing here, even going in vehicles that have been stopped being made for a few years now. So this is the new T6 light we're working on. Not available yet, but anybody that does have these or the trial sets that are out there will tell you these are brighter again than T6 factory LED headlights. And that's what you hear a lot of people talking about, how bright the LED headlights are on a T6. These are even brighter and they look pretty and they do lots of nice sequences and they flash in all different colours, but we'll come to them a little bit more. I can't tell you when they're going to be available because they're still in the development stage. Coming soon, but don't ask me when. So the next modification we're going to talk about is wheels. So alloy wheels, steel wheels, split rims. There's so many options now for a Volkswagen Transporter. Back in the day there was all different things like banded steels and stuff, but now, so just rewinding a bit and talking about alloy wheels with Transporters, years ago when this whole thing started, nobody made a specific or dedicated Transporter wheel. They were never really load rated enough. So the whole pattern for a Transporter is 5x120, which is the same as lots of BMWs. So generally what people would do is they would fit 5 Series BMW wheels on their vans. The spigot, it needed to have a spigot ring because the centre bore was wrong, they weren't necessarily the right load rating, and they were very much car inspired and design. Then over the years, as the Transporter market's grown and the demand for wheels has grown so much with it, wheels brands or companies like Navis make dedicated wheels especially for a Transporter, and there's so much option out there in style and looks. The key thing is that they're built for a transporter, so they are load rated to take the weight that we do in a transporter. They're the right centre bore, so they bolt straight on without the need for a spigot ring, and they're the right PCD, so the right amount of holes, so they're just a direct fit. So this is a classic example. This is Steve's van, which he very much likes the commercial look, and this is the GP7 wheel. So this wheel is very much inspired by the old GP steel wheel. If you Google that, you'll see an image of the steel wheel that came on the T32, very much like that, but in a steel. That's the GP7 wheel. So you've got so many extremes, and you can go from there, something like the Dream Build, which has got custom made, forged split rims for the Dream Build, real high end, really their show vehicle wheels. You wouldn't necessarily want to drive them around in the winter or as a daily. We probably do here on some vehicles and those as much as we shouldn't do, but you know, whereas a wheel like that's about £1,000 a set, a wheel like that's more like £4,000 a set. And then the other thing we're seeing lots more of, if this is the look you go for, I'm moving around here to Mikey's, or the Navis's demo van. So this is currently on Air Plus, so this vehicle lifts higher than the standard suspension, but with this Air Plus on this setup, Mikey's running an off-road set of wheels, so it's really become common to see lowered swampers and also lifted swampers. So this vehicle also lifts higher than standard, but then people go for the 17-inch wheel and the all-terrain tyre look. I love running a setup like this in the winter. I like the grip, I like the look, I like the kind of the comfort of knowing if I'm going to be going through snow or heavy rain or bad weather that the tyres are going to do their job. I like the styling, the off-road look. I like the comfort you get from a thicker tyre. But yeah, 17-inch wheels on an off-road tyre have become more and more popular on transporters, and companies like Navis now Navis make 3 different styles that are dedicated transporter fitment, 17-inch wheels. Makes it easy to get the right load rating tyre. They can look really good with the right setup, and the tyre and the wheel packages are very similar price to as if you went for a 20-inch wheel with a standard tyre on there. So I've brought you inside to the Navis wheel wall because we've not got any vehicles out there with steels on, but just to show you steel wheels. So steel wheels, again, people like, certainly with a commercial looking vehicle, I think it really suits it really well. So a steel wheel is what a transporter would come on, but generally transporter steel wheels are 16 or 17 inch, so they just don't really have that wow factor. Well, that was kind of where Navis started. They started with a steel wheel that was bigger to kind of give you that commercial look, but in different colours and bigger sizes. So you can see here, there's the Navis Dome, which gives you that very classic look with the dome on it. You've got the Holy, which is kind of very more OEM, like the 16-inch wheel, but bigger. The Chopper, just a nice twist, a little bit more design to it, really nice popular wheel. And then the original one that we did, I think very first steel wheel we did, which was the Smooth, which was a completely flat face. So these are all 20s, these actually come in 19s as well. Now that kind of brings me on to the subject of 20-inch wheels and why 20-inch wheels are so popular over lots of others 18s and 19s. And the simplest answer is one, well, there's a few answers to that. One, they look better. The more wheel you can see, the less tyre you can see. You pay to have this nice pretty looking design. It's nice to have a good amount of that wheel, but also it's so much easier to get a load rated tyre for a 20-inch wheel. There's not really dedicated specific transporter wheels, but we need a tyre that can take a high load rating. So to do that, what we're really doing is putting tyres on that are designed for X5s or big heavy vehicles. Now with a 20-inch wheel, there's so much more options to get in the load rating we need, so 103, 102 rated tyres to fit on these, whereas it's a lot harder to get the right diameter and rolling radius if you're going for a 19-inch wheel. So hence why 20-inch wheels are by far the most popular wheel to put on a transporter. Now people will say, oh, my friend's got 20-inch wheels and he says the ride's terrible. That isn't down to the wheel, I can guarantee you that. That will be down to the tyre. If I ever see a post on social media that says, oh, I've got 20-inch wheels and the ride's terrible, they've always got some cheap lowering springs on it, and they've always got 275/40 profile tyre, and that's too big a tyre. Your rolling radius is about 8% out, your speedo's out, the ride is firm. To get that 106 rating, the tyre walls are thick, full of wire and rubber, they're overinflated and they're super firm. 20-inch wheels can be super comfortable with the right size tyre on, and you pick a tyre size to suit what suspension you put on your van. The lower you go, obviously, the smaller the tyre you need to go. So your standard lowering suspension, so your lowering springs or the coilovers we mentioned earlier, with a 20-inch wheel, 265/40/20, it's going to give you a 103 rated, it's going to give you the right shape and curve to your tyre. It's going to make it nice and comfortable, and you're not going to have that super hard overrated tyre that you would have with a 275/40 that's throwing your speed at about 8% as well. So number 4 on the list is carpet lining and insulation and sound deadening, all that kind of area of a vehicle. So these are big metal, solid, echoey panels. So if you've ever driven a transporter that's not got anything in the back or not been carpet lined, you'll know how echoey and noisy it is. If you've tried to use the factory Bluetooth, you can't hear anybody when you get over 40 miles an hour. They can't hear you because of how much sound is generated by these big empty boxes. Now you can improve that massively by adding a bit of sound deadening, some insulation to go in between there, some sort of eco fleece, and also the carpet. Not only does carpet make it feel so much more car-like, but it removes that kind of echoey drone that you get from a transporter. Now all of these vans, Steve's van is an empty panel van. It's got nothing in the bed, no camper or anything in the back, but it's carpet lined, insulated and soundproofed, and he's got no bulkhead in there. You can have a full-blown conversation with Steve on his Bluetooth and it sounds exactly the same he does in the car. The Dream build, if any of you have seen, we've not really shown the inside of this yet, but it's got a lot of work going on here. It's got a full caravel setup going on, a pod that's going to go in the back, which would explain a lot more details. Again, loads of soundproofing, carpet line and insulation. You don't actually need to go mad with soundproofing. Quite often on our videos people will comment, you've done far too much in there, all you're doing is adding more weight. They're kind of right in a way. You don't necessarily need to go mad and put soundproofing everywhere, but these vehicles are never going to be overweight. I don't mind putting loads of sound deadening because the more we put in, the better it's going to be. But actually just a few panels here and there will make a massive difference to the way the vehicle echoes. But this panel will sound so much more solid because of the soundproofing that's in it. If you did that on an empty panel van, this would be really echoey and bouncy, and it would generate so much more noise. The insulation is a really simple one. The eco fleece is great stuff just to wedge in those panels on those voids, you know, in between this panel and the board on the back side. Just some eco fleece in there is going to take away some of that droning sound, and then finally the carpet lining. So as I said, all of these vans, Mikey's van over there still got the bulkhead in because he carries stock in that, but that's all carpet lined, soundproofed and insulated. All of these have had a similar treatment done. It just, as I said, makes them so much more like a car. It's nicer to feel, it's nicer to look at, and it just really affects the way the sound goes round the vehicle when you're sitting in it. I keep referring to them wanting to feel and drive like a car, and that's because we drive these vehicles as dailies, don't we? Yes, we use them as campers, and yes, we use them to go biking in, but they're daily vehicles. We want them to drive like a car, in the way they comfort, the way they handle, the way we can see the road, and how they feel from the experience on the inside. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is audio. Now, quite often when you buy a car nowadays, you can see they've got a Bose sound system in or another real high-end sound system in, but these, again, commercial vehicles, the panel vans, the sound system and the speaker setup in them is just very basic. And if you're doing a lot of miles or driving around and you're listening to your favourite radio station, they're pretty poor. And that's, again, a very easy thing to upgrade. So if it's something like this Preface, this has got a Kenwood head unit in it, and then we'll feature this one in a future video, but we're going to town on the audio with this one because it's a show build. It's got pillar build, you'll see here, with Hertz speakers in, rear speakers, subwoofers, amplifiers, loads of stuff. We'll go into more detail. Now, you don't need to go to this level to improve your sound quality. So my previous van, my T6.1, we just had the Alpine speaker kit in that. It had the Alpine Adventure speaker kits in the tweeters, the door cards, and it had a subwoofer in it. Nothing particularly adventurous, nothing crazy, but the sound quality in that was exceptional. It was brilliant. It doesn't need to be crazy, elaborate, fancy speaker builds to really improve the quality and the sound of the van. Again, just trying to make it feel like a high-end car, making it feel luxury inside. We spend a lot of time in these vehicles. We put a lot of miles on there. I love listening to a bit of Spotify, my favourite tunes on, like a bit of bass, I like to change the sound, and an audio is a really simple way to complement the other bits you've done to your vehicle to add to that experience of driving the vehicle. Certainly adding the soundproof and insulation that we talked about earlier, again, is really going to highlight and make it so much more of a nicer experience when you add the audio to your vehicle. So we are only 50 subscribers away from reaching 40,000 subscribers. So please do share this video with anybody that may be interested in things to do to their transporter. If they're interested in any of the other videos we do, whether it's on transporters, whether it's on Porsche 911s, plenty more content on that vehicle coming up. Please do share that video, get more people following the channel. Like that video, the more people that like it, the more YouTube share it with other people. Post in the comments below, let us know what you think the most important modifications that you've done to your transporter are. We try and answer every single comment and reply to any questions that we possibly have. And as always, thanks for watching.